When you finally start to heal yourself, you are going to go through a lot of withdrawals. Welcome or welcome back. It's your favorite mental health specialist, Ty Guidance, and that's what we're going to talk about. So trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. Make sure you grab your pen, your paper, and you're ready to take your notes and some tissues just in case you cry. You have to realize that when it comes to healing, there's no right or wrong way to heal yourself, so always take what resonates and leave the rest. And most importantly, because grieving could take years, weeks, months, and days, you're going to experience a fluctuation of emotions. Why? Well, one is because you are a human being, you do have feelings, and when you've been conditioned to abuse, it affects you psychologically, emotionally, physically, financially. It shows up in our health, it shows up in our mindset, it shows up in our behaviors, it shows up in ourselves, and it shows up how we internalize and process the world. So when you are removing yourself from the dysfunction and the confusion and the chaos and the insecurities and the doubts and the fears and not coming from support, not having the finances, not being educated, not being confident, you have to realize that's a lot of time, energy, and effort. That's what you were once familiar with. And that's why it's so difficult sometimes for people to let go of their past and to stop suppressing how they feel, because you've been accustomed to live a certain way. You've been accustomed to abuse, whether it was intentionally, whether it comes from your family members, your household, friends, your environments, your communities. And you have to realize, because that's what you were once familiar with, it takes a toll on you. So when you're going through your season of isolation, when you start to elevate, when you decide that you want to get back up again, when you decide that enough is enough, or God, ancestors in the universe is forcing you to change because it's inevitable, the first thing you have to realize is that you have to be okay with where you are. This is going to sound cliche. I know you don't want to hear it, but these are going to be 5 recommendations in order for you to stay grounded and in order for you to stay present, because it's like you cannot skip the process. That's literally like if you were to get hit by a bus or if you got surgery, the recovery process. That's what healing is about, is the recovering process. Especially, like I said, if you've been conditioned to trauma for a long period of time, you are recovering. You cannot just get back up again in 24 hours, especially if it took years of trauma or if it took years of abuse. And you guys, give me 1 second. As I'm making this video live, I'm doing something, and I don't like to multitask, but you have to realize that. So when things start to change, you have to be okay with where you are. And in order for you to do this, you have to grieve. That's the first thing that you need to do. And like I said, grieving looks different for everybody. Like, how people choose to grieve, once again, take what resonates, leave the rest. Recommendations that I personally have done and what has helped me along my healing journey was to vocalize and articulate how I felt. Like, I've had to express how I feel, and how you can express yourself is in many ways. You can verbally express yourself to your parents, your peers, the people that you trust and confide and love. You can schedule an appointment and a service with me, your favorite mental health specialist. You could seek therapy. You could seek guidance counseling. You can go to a psychiatrist. You can separate yourself from people, place, and things, right? Temporarily, not forever. Like what people say, go in hermit mode or go into your isolation season. You can go to God, you can go to the ancestors, you can go to the universe. Once again, I'm not here to force religion or spirituality onto you. Take what resonates. So you just have to know that you can no longer hold on to any emotions that you were experiencing, whether they were negative. And in order for you to do that, you have to talk about it. You can talk about it, like I said, out loud or even to yourself, or you can journal how you feel, but you have to let go of what it is that you no longer want to experience. And until you are able to articulate and get to a place where you feel comfortable expressing that instead of suppressing how you feel, you're constantly going to go through the PTSD, the OCD, the anxiety, being autistic, being depressed, BPD. And I know you guys, because these are all labels and attachments. And it's not to discredit people who are so quick to prescribe you medicine or to label you and say that you have this, you have that. Medicine is going to treat the situation. It's not going to heal you. You constantly have to take it over and over and over again. It's temporary. But over here, if you want to go to the source and get to the deep root of issue, you have to talk about it. Like, you cannot be embarrassed, you can't be ashamed, and most importantly, you have to know that you talking about this is for you to validate how you feel. It's allowing you to accept what has happened to you and process what has happened to you. A lot of times people go through so many trials and tribulations, and like I said, you've been accustomed to it that you don't even realize that you're not okay, that you have this anxiety and you're anxious and you're depressed because you've had all these things happen to you and you never talked about it. You never took the time to grieve. You never were able to rest. And that's the second thing. When you are being removed from certain people, places, and things, you have to learn how to slow down. That's another thing nobody wants to hear, and that's the truth when it comes to your healing journey, is learning to rest, you guys. I went through just amount of trauma physically, like on my body, you guys. I've talked about being in car accidents, and there are some other things that I will express to you guys when the time comes, but it's just like, we have to realize when we put our bodies through a certain amount of trauma, how that affects us. I've been in more than 3 or 4 car accidents my entire life. I've had concussions, you guys. Like, a lot of people do not understand, like I said, the wear and the tear of the trauma, like learning to rest. So resting is not always overworking yourself. I know we live in this hustle, muscle, bustle, what is it called, environment or society, that's the word. I'm a little sleepy, you guys, and I have this bright light in my face, so I'm trying to make this video, but like, there is this like misconception that if you're not working 70, 50 million trillion hours that you're never going to be successful. We're not our ancestors. We're not the older generations. We're not slaves. We are in a time, us millennials and Gen Zers, where we have certain resources and certain privileges and certain connections that our ancestors and the older generations work for, so therefore we can use them to the best advantage. Over here, I don't believe in working hard. I believe in working smarter, and me personally, I don't have to work hard, and I'm okay with that. That doesn't make me lazy. That doesn't make me broke. That doesn't make me a bum, because I know people who work their entire life just to pass away, just to die. Didn't have any free time, didn't have the opportunity to do what they want. Now, I'm not saying that you don't work at all, but you don't have to work so hard in life, because working hard in life, if you don't move with intention, or even if you don't move in direction, if that's not the type of life that you want to sustain, you don't have to do that. You have to be okay with it. Like, you have to be okay with taking your time and realizing, okay, what resources do you have? You know, what type of support do you have? What don't you have? Because it's just like, unless people are pouring into you, you don't have to go so hard. Like, 24 hours is still going to be 24 hours. Rather you did 5 things or you did a trillion things. But speaking from experience, as I've grown older and because I'm where I'm at now, taking your time because you want to be able to sustain it. That's, like I said, if you were to, let's just say, work 100 hours in a day for a week, eventually your body is going to go into a shock. Like, you'll pass out. You will pass out. Like, it doesn't make sense to be so stiff and to be so overwhelmed. And that's why a lot of people are anxious, is because you're trying to do a trillion tasks or a day, or like I said, you're so used to being traumatized. Like, learn to rest. So what that looks like to you, whenever you have off days, go to sleep, take naps, go outside, do things that require you to do less. It is okay. You're not lazy. And if anybody or anything, like I said, who doesn't know you or understand what you went through wants to speak on you, they're not important. Not just that, when you elevate, when you talk about how you feel, when you're resting, when you're taking your time doing things, when you're processing information, you will start to realize who's for you and who's not. And that's the third thing. You have to be okay with letting go of things that you were once familiar with. You have to realize you are going to outgrow mindsets, behaviors, patterns, beliefs, morals, people, places, and things. And that is okay. Like I said, it's one thing to understand trauma, but to process it takes time, energy, and effort. Like I said, especially if you've been experiencing this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Like, if you've been in car accidents, that's physical trauma. If you've been broke, that could be mental trauma. Being in poverty is a mental trauma. And then for people who may not be aware of themselves, a financial problem. Like, being touched on, that's a physical problem. Being sick with illnesses and diseases, like, it's so much to life. And it's just like, we need to learn how to stable our mind. In order for us to stable our mind, we have to take our time. We have to go through these withdrawals. We have to talk about what it is that we're feeling. And lastly, you have to allow yourself to feel. You have to actually validate your emotions. It's one thing to affirm your emotions. It's one thing for you to say them out loud. It's one thing for you to write them down. It's one thing for you to rest, but you have to be okay with it. And nobody's telling you when or how to be okay with it. Like, stages of healing requires you to be angry, being frustrated, feeling sick, feeling tired, fatigue. These are all symptoms. You guys can look this information up. Once again, I'm a mental health specialist, a naturopathic physician. I've been doing this for the past 8 years. And even if I wasn't this person, even if I wasn't doing this, you could look up this information. It's not nothing new that I'm telling you guys, but it may be for the first time if you've never seen me or decide to heal yourself this way naturally. That's what that means. You have to realize that you're going to be upset. You're going to be sad. Like I said, if you grew up in poverty, if you've been abused psychologically, emotionally, if you've been groomed, you have to realize none of that stuff is okay. The world is very wicked for some people, places, and things. There is a lot of confusion. There is a lot of corruption. But in order to change the world, or for people to raise their frequencies and people to stop doing the things they do, all we can do is worry about ourselves. All we can worry about is how we feel and what we're responsible of, and your life will be a reflection of that. But until you get your mind, your spirit, your body, your soul, and your energy together, you're constantly gonna feel fear. You're gonna feel doubt. You're gonna have insecurities. You're gonna feel like you're lacking. You're gonna compare yourself. You're gonna feel like you have to rush, and it's like, where are you going? You do realize your final destination is death. If people were to know that, you wouldn't be in such a rush to get to where you need to be. You would learn how to be present. And until you learn how to be present, until you learn how to surrender, until you learn how to stay still, until you learn how to take your time, you're constantly going to be trying to huff and puff and overwork yourself. And like I said, you'll burn yourself out. And it's not to discredit the older generations, because unfortunately, a lot of them did what they were told. Over here, we decide what we want to do. Even if you have a 9-to-5, even if you're not an entrepreneur, you don't have to be a multi-trillionaire to have this concept. You have to choose this, though. It does require a lot of energy. It does require a lot of work. But over here, I have 100% guaranteed results. You have to grieve. And grieving sometimes can being upset and staying in a room. Now, of course, you don't want to lack, your hygiene and personal self. But I know people who stop taking care of themselves. You don't want to get to the point where you can't get up, because that's what causes the depression, which is a deep rest, is not moving your body. If you can constantly move around, but you could take your time moving around, you can overcome your anxiety and stop being anxious and feeling so low. But until you cry, yell, scream, and shout, until you accept what has happened, until you process what happens, until you're willing to let it go, which, like I said, takes years, months, weeks, and days, you're constantly just going to feel stuck and stagnant when the trauma that you've experienced has already happened. It's lingering, and that's why people have PTSD. Once again, you guys can look up this information. I'm going to end off the video with that. If you have questions, comments, and concerns, make sure you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, make sure you comment down below, turn your post notification, and subscribe. Follow me on all social media platforms. All the information will be down in my description box below. If you're interested in a service or a session, click the link in my description or head to my about in my bio. I have my website at TigerGoddessSystem.com. If you guys are not able to afford a session, that's understandable. Just make sure that you guys are watching these videos, you're engaging, you're taking your notes, and let me know what topics that you guys want to discuss. Feel free to feel safe and engaged. This is a safe environment. And DM me on Instagram and not on TikTok. DM me on Instagram if you have questions, comments, concerns about any specific topics that I haven't discussed. And make sure you guys are following me. Once again, I will be going live on TikTok and on Instagram, answering you guys' questions that I receive, as well as making the videos that you guys are asking for until we reach our goal here on YouTube, which we will shortly. But that's the truth when it comes to healing. When you finally start to heal, you're going to go through a lot, because you've been through a lot. But I'm telling you, once we get past this, once we cry, yell, scream, and shout, and we accept it, then we could start to move forward, which is the second part of healing, which is celebrating. Okay? I love you. Bye.